Malcolm in the Middle is one of the funniest sitcoms ever made, but if you actually slow down and pay attention, this show was sneaking in some genuinely bizarre stuff. So today I'm going through 8 of the most absurd moments in Malcolm in the Middle. We start with Malcolm landing a babysitting gig for a wealthy couple called the Inksters, and at first glance, it seems like the dream. The kids are already down for the night, the pay is way above normal, snacks are laid out for him, and the parents keep gushing about how much they trust him, practically calling him family. They tell him he's free to watch TV all night with a strange catch. They told him that he needs to flip on the satellite box first, otherwise he'll only get adult channels. It sounds like a throwaway joke at first. Then Malcolm's relaxing, snacking on their food, and his foot bumps the remote, switching the channel, and all of a sudden, he's watching himself, live on the screen. He traces the cable through the house, pushes open a door, and finds a full hidden camera setup. This couple had been recording him the whole time, quietly saving clips of him in the bathroom, scratching himself, just going about his business around the house. The whole adult channel trick was a setup designed to catch him doing something private the moment he thought no one was watching. This has to be one of the most unsettling moments in the entire series. Malcolm was about 11 years old during this episode, and 2 grown adults sat there watching and cataloging a child's every move. Just imagine what could have happened if he'd never touched that satellite box. And it raises a bigger question. How many kids came through that house before him? These people need to get locked up. But now let's get into what Hal was up to around the same time. We all know that Hal has done some weird things during this show, but this shows us how thin the line is between a goofy dad and a full mental breakdown. So Lois leaves town to visit Francis after he gets hurt at military school, and Hal cannot handle a single night without her since the two of them have apparently never slept apart in their entire marriage. While he is spiraling, Malcolm and his Krillboy friends decide to build a battle robot in the house, and a sleepless Hal jumps in to help them. From there on, he completely unravels. He stops sleeping, the house turns into a disaster zone. He is chain smoking with huge bags under his eyes, and he starts dancing around the living room like a man who has lost all contact with reality. Then comes the part that's actually messed up, because the robot he builds is designed to launch live bees. I personally find it genuinely unsettling how fast Hal goes from harmless weirdo to a guy seriously planning a bee attack on people, especially when you remember that plenty of people are allergic, and this could have ended somewhere truly bad. The show frames it as one more wacky Hal moment, but a sleep-deprived dad weaponizing an entire insect swarm out of pure spite is messed up. It takes him only a few days without Lois to turn into a walking hazard, and that tells you everything about who is actually holding this whole family together. But let's take a look at what Dewey's been up to. This one sneaks up on you because it is so sweet right up until it suddenly turns for the worst. Basically, the family heads off to a water park, but Dewey is stuck at home with a tough old babysitter named Mrs. White because of an ear infection. And no, I'm not talking about that Mrs. White. Anyways, at first she is cold and strict and will not let him do anything fun, so he just sits there bored out of his mind asking what he is even allowed to do. Then slowly, the two of them warm up to each other, they build a little tent out of blankets in the living room, they swap stories about their imaginary friends, and it becomes one of the most wholesome stretches in the entire season. The peak of it is the two of them dancing around the room together to Fernando by ABBA, both of them having the absolute time of their lives. And right in the middle of that happy moment, she literally gets a heart attack in the middle of the dance, and an ambulance comes and carries her away while Dewey waves goodbye, with the show never telling us whether she actually survived. I personally think this is way heavier than the show is willing to admit, because we are watching a tiny kid witness the person caring for him possibly die right in front of him during what was supposed to be a fun afternoon. This has to leave some kind of trauma on him. Even most full-grown adults would be shaken for weeks by something like that, and Dewey just has to call for help and quietly process it on his own. The episode basically shrugs and moves on like nothing happened, but when I was looking back on it, this is one of the saddest things the show ever pulled off. However, while this moment was sad, I guarantee the next one would make you scared if you found yourself in the same situation. Now this one could have ended up really badly. Malcolm wakes up with a sharp pain in his side. Nobody believes him at first because Reese keeps faking sick too. Because he is a few months too young for an adult room, he gets stuck overnight alone in the children's ward, and that is where everything goes sideways. The staff treat him like he's nothing. A doctor jams his fingers right where it hurts to demonstrate the pain to a group of students, and a massive, intimidating orderly named Helmet tells him he can bite down on his hand as hard as he wants while they jab him with a needle. Then the night falls, and the whole place turns sinister. Malcolm watches an orderly carry something human shaped in a bag down the dark hallway, and a little later, a team of doctors slips into his room, locks a metal cage onto his head, and starts prepping him for secret brain surgery. They only stop because they realize at the last second that they grabbed the wrong patient. On top of all this, they also got the wrong diagnosis for Malcolm as well. So he had to read his own blood test results, run the numbers, and then figure out that the doctor is wrong. And when he brings it up, they dismiss him. So to save himself, he literally had to write his own lab values directly onto his body and threatens to sue the hospital if they operate on him without running the tests again. I personally would be scarred for life after a night like that, because being a sick kid alone in a strange hospital is terrifying enough, let alone knowing they're preparing to do a wrong surgery on you. While this was scary, let's talk about the creepiest guy in the show and what he has been up to this whole time. You knew Craig was going to show up on this list because the man is basically the leader of disturbing Malcolm moments. And this is the episode that confirms exactly how far gone he really is. Craig heads off to a comic convention for the weekend and hires Dewey to look after his beloved cat, Jellybean. While Dewey is handling the cat, he ends up poking around Craig's bedroom, and what he finds under the bed belongs in a police report. There are boxes packed with photos of Lois, all clearly taken without her ever knowing. Plus, two little dolls dressed in matching Lucky Aide uniforms lying down together holding hands. One with glasses drawn on to be Craig, and the other carrying an actual lock of Lois's real hair. And then, just to fully seal the deal, Dewey grabs a pair of binoculars off the shelf and realizes you can stare straight into the Wilkerson backyard from Craig's window. I personally think this is the exact moment Craig graduates from quirky lonely coworker to a guy you would genuinely call the cops on. Because having a crush is one thing, but building a hidden shrine with stolen hair and surveillance gear pointed at a married woman's house is a whole another level. The fact that he keeps all of it tucked under the bed means he knows perfectly well it is wrong. If a real person had a setup like this 2 blocks away, you would pack up and move that same night. I could definitely make a whole video on Craig's weird behavior, so if you'd like to see that, make sure to subscribe and drop a like. In the meantime, let's talk about more messed up neighbors. This one gets me because we get a plot twist we literally don't see coming. So here Malcolm is feeling low and decides the way to feel better is to win over the neighbors who have been giving the family the cold shoulder. So when he spots a man hauling boxes out of a garage, he jumps in to help carry them. The guy is warm and grateful, tells Malcolm he is a thoughtful kid and that he should not care what other people think of him. And for a minute, it is a sincerely nice moment. But then a couple comes storming up screaming that they have been robbed, and it seems that Malcolm just spent his whole afternoon happily helping a burglar load up a getaway car. Malcolm breaks down and starts crying, but when the police comes, the neighbors want to let it slide since they claim only junk got taken. But Malcolm has a photographic memory, so he starts listing every single thing he carried out, and that is where it gets dark. He recalls printers, solvent-based ink remover, security cotton with fluorescent fibers for faking real bills, and a stamp machine that would only make sense for forging stock certificates. The sweet older neighbors he felt so bad about were quietly running a full counterfeiting operation out of their home. I personally love how grim this little twist is, because the show could have stopped at a simple robbery, and instead it goes all in on the idea that the most ordinary looking people on your street might be neck deep in serious crime. Also, what the hell is up with this neighborhood? There's not a single normal family here. If you thought Craig was the creepiest person on this show, let me introduce you to Grandma Ida, operating at absolute full power. Ida announces she is engaged to a wealthy man named Mr. Lee and plans to move to Hong Kong with him. And the family is overjoyed mostly because it means she will finally be living on the other side of the planet. The strange part is how agreeable Mr. Lee stays the entire time. smiling and happily going along with whatever Ida tells him to do. Then, the cracks start to show. Mr. Lee spots a piece of paper tucked inside her wig listing all of Mr. Lee's bank account information. And a little later, he sits on her purse and finds it stuffed with opiates and animal-grade mood elevators. Ida has been quietly drugging the poor man through his tea so she can marry him for his money while he is barely conscious. The family confronts her and threatens to call the police, so she pretends to call the whole thing off, and then she drugs the entire family by spiking the food at the wedding buffet, so nobody is clear-headed enough to stop the ceremony. I personally think this is the moment Ida reveals she is the true villain of the whole show, because most characters do bad things out of anger or in the heat of the moment, while Ida sits down and calmly plans how to poison a man and his whole family to get exactly what she wants. Thankfully, Mr. Lee runs away at the end, and Ida didn't succeed with her devious plan. And finally, we get to the one that honestly made me sad. Malcolm gets stuck working the graveyard shift at the Lucky Aide, and almost right away, he notices little things that do not add up. There is a Hershey wrapper on the counter with the exact change next to it. Even though no customer has walked in for hours, the recalled pills keep vanishing off the shelves. The display clocks all get synced to the same exact time, and the fingerprints get wiped clean off the freezer doors overnight. When he pulls up the security tapes, he spots a man who keeps appearing and disappearing throughout the footage in a different outfit each time, until the guy straight up vanishes from the camera mid-walk. Malcolm goes digging and finds him living in the narrow gap between the store counters. This man has been secretly living inside the Lucky Aide for 3 full years. After walking away from a high-pressure job one day, spotting the gap, and deciding to disappear from the world entirely, washing a third of his body in the sink each day while quietly keeping the store running. I personally find this deeply unsettling and kind of tragic, because we opened this list with a kid being obsessively watched on hidden cameras, and we are closing it with a grown man who vanished completely while surrounded by hundreds of people every single day. Rather than running off to a cabin in the woods somewhere, he chose to hide in plain sight inside a busy store, and for 3 whole years, not one single person ever noticed he was even there. So those were my picks for 8 of the most bizarre moments hiding inside a show we mostly remember for being absolutely hilarious. And the scary thing is, this barely scratches the surface of how dark Malcolm in the Middle was actually willing to go. There are honestly a ton more messed up moments buried in this lovely little show, so tell me down in the comments if you want a part 2. That's gonna be it, folks. I'll catch you guys in the next one.